All right, today we're going to talk about one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most misunderstood frameworks out there for innovation, the double diamond. But first, let me ask you a question and be honest. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a project, spent all the time, all the money, only to launch this beautiful, elegant solution to a problem that, well, it turns out nobody actually had? Yeah, if you're nodding right now, trust me, you are not alone. That feeling, that's the innovation trap. It's that pit in your stomach when a genuinely brilliant idea just completely misses the mark with real people. It's a huge fear for anyone building a product or a service. So how does this happen? Well, the trap is sprung the moment we fall in love with a solution before we've even properly understood the problem. And that leads to a catastrophic waste of time, money, and worst of all, it can kill a fantastic idea just because it was pointed at the wrong target. But what if there was a way to navigate all this chaos? You know, a map to guide our thinking so we can avoid these classic mistakes? Well, good news, there is, and it's called the double diamond. So what is it really? It was created by the British Design Council back in 2004 after they studied how innovation works at some huge companies. But here's the key thing. It's not a rigid step-by-step formula. You should think of it more like a visual guide for your brain, a framework that forces you to solve the right problem before you even start thinking about building the right solution. The real magic behind this whole thing is this rhythm between two different modes of thinking. First, you have divergent thinking. This is where you go wide, you explore, you brainstorm, you come up with a ton of ideas, and you don't judge any of them. Then, you switch gears to convergent thinking. This is where you narrow down, you analyze, you filter, and you start making some tough decisions. It's that pulse, that back and forth that makes the whole thing work. And this process is broken down into 4 clear phases that actually form the 2 diamonds. They are discover, define, develop, and deliver. Let's see how these create that iconic shape. Okay, so the entire first diamond is all about one thing, the problem. You start with the discover phase, where you diverge, you go wide. You're talking to users, doing research, just gathering mountains of information to really get what their pain points are. Then you converge in the define phase, where you take all that messy data and synthesize it into one crystal clear problem statement. The whole goal? To exit this first diamond knowing exactly what challenge you need to solve. And only then, only after you've nailed the problem, do you enter the second diamond. This is the solution space. You diverge again in the develop phase, brainstorming all kinds of creative solutions to that problem you just defined. And finally, you converge one last time in the deliver phase. This is where you prototype, you test, you refine, and you actually build the one solution that's going to make it to launch. It's a really brilliant and disciplined way to think. Now, that all sounds beautifully clean and linear on a PowerPoint slide, doesn't it? But, you know, as anyone who has actually tried to innovate knows, reality is a whole lot messier. And here it is. The single biggest mistake people make is treating this diagram like it's a one-way street. The truth is, innovation is messy. It's iterative. You might be deep in the develop phase and suddenly realize, oh no, we actually defined the problem all wrong. And you've got to be willing to jump back to that first diamond. The best teams, they embrace this mess. They move back and forth as they learn. And that brings us to the biggest, most common criticism of the model when it's used poorly. The elephant in the room. We're talking about technical viability and budget. In other words, can we actually build this thing? And this elephant leads to 3 fatal flaws. First, that linear myth we just talked about, forgetting to iterate. Second, completely ignoring viability, which leads to these amazing ideas that engineers immediately shoot down because they're impossible or way too expensive. And third, the root cause of that second problem, excluding developers and business experts from the first diamond. They get treated like a final roadblock instead of a collaborator from the start. So, knowing all these pitfalls, how do we make the double diamond actually work for us in the real world? How do we turn it from a frustrating theory into a truly powerful tool for innovation? Well, the Design Council actually gives us the answer with 4 guiding principles. 1, put people first. You have to genuinely understand your users. 2, collaborate and co-create with a diverse team. 3, iterate, because you will not get it right the first time. And 4, visualize your ideas. Make them tangible with prototypes and sketches. But if you remember one thing, let it be this. The most critical shift you can make is to stop treating technical and business viability as an afterthought. You have to involve developers and business stakeholders from day one, right back in that discover phase. Their perspective is absolutely essential to make sure your ideas aren't just desirable, but also viable and feasible. They're not a filter, they are strategic partners. It's also about knowing when to even use this thing. The double diamond really shines when you're tackling big, complex, wicked problems, or creating a brand new product from the ground up. But you know what? It's probably the wrong tool for simple, incremental fixes or projects where the technical constraints are super rigid. In those cases, all that exploration is just inefficient. So, when we put all of this together, we start to see the double diamond not as some rigid process, but as something way more valuable. The whole model fails when you treat it like a linear dogma, totally disconnected from reality. But it absolutely triumphs when you use it like a flexible, collaborative map. Think of it as a compass that's constantly guiding your team's thinking, not giving them turn-by-turn directions. So, what are the big takeaways here? First, the double diamond is a mindset, not just a picture. Second, iteration isn't a nice to have, it's mandatory. Third, you've got to involve everyone, the whole multidisciplinary team from the very beginning. And finally, remember, this doesn't replace things like Agile, it actually complements them. The double diamond helps you figure out what to build, so Agile can help you figure out how to build it. Which really just leaves us with one last question to think about for your own work. When you're approaching innovation, is your process serving as a flexible map that guides you through the mess? Or has it accidentally become a rigid dogma that's holding you back?